Hello, welcome back. Today I want to talk to you about pronunciation, and the reason why I'm recording this video today is that I am opening Pronounce with Patty again, which is my British pronunciation course, at the end of the month. So the end of November, we're going to be having Pronounce with Patty again for group 14. You should be following me on Instagram if you really want to get more information about that, and hopefully join if pronunciation is something you care about. So I thought I would record this video just to give you some insight as to what I teach, just to give you an idea of what you can expect when you learn pronunciation from me. I teach pronunciation in a very different way because I learned pronunciation in a different way. So the whole terminology thing that you guys know, because if you like pronunciation, I'm sure you've seen so many videos about this, and this is usually how teachers teach. So things like the schwa and IPA and connected speech and all of those terminologies surrounding pronunciation are great. And I know them, but I don't teach like that. Because the way I learned pronunciation was very much about hearing the words and the sentences and becoming aware of those sounds. So through so much listening, I understood that bitch and beach are different words. They sound different. But I am well aware that this is a difficult thing to do by yourself. So what I like to do is to help you develop this awareness, because this is what is going to make all the difference in the way you speak. You guys have to remember that if you cannot hear the difference, you're not going to be able to say those things in a different way either. So you're always going to say bitch in the same way as beach, or beach in the same way as bitch, because for you they sound exactly the same. That's just an example. So learning to really tell the difference between sounds is absolutely crucial. I learned pronunciation through a lot of repetition. So I would play around with words. I would be looking at myself in the mirror and really playing around. I would be watching my lips. When I was talking to somebody, I would be looking at them and looking at their lips and trying to understand how they made those sounds come to life. And then I would go to the mirror and I would do the same thing. So this is something I teach as well, to be able to look at the mouth, to be able to understand where your tongue is, what is happening with your teeth, if your lips are moving, where the sound is coming from. So is the sound coming from your throat, from the front of your mouth? Is it nasal? Is it not? Is it important that we change our voice when we're speaking English? Well, guess what? If you're actually reproducing the sounds correctly, your voice will change, and you can't help it. It's not something you can stop. So learning all about that is super important, and repeating those sounds enough so that they become what I'd like to call second nature, so that you know how to say foreign. You don't have to stop and think, what is it again? What is it again? How are we supposed to say? You know it because you have repeated it so much. When you are aware of the sound and you have repeated it enough times, you then start to hear yourself differently, because pronunciation is very much about listening, you guys. A lot of people think, oh, pronunciation is all about speaking. You know, that's why we should all be doing shadowing. I completely disagree. Great pronunciation is about being able to listen really, really carefully and really clearly. So then you start to hear yourself differently and you start to notice your own mistakes. So this is something that I encourage my students to do as well, which is to practice what I'm teaching in that particular video and then to record themselves saying that particular word they're struggling with or sentence. I teach both words and sentences. You have to teach both. Pronunciation is never only about words. Remember that when you're studying as well, okay? You need words and sentences. Hold on, there's a truck reversing and it's beeping. Give me a minute. Yeah, take your time, babe. Okay, so I encourage my students to then record themselves reproducing that sound, saying that word or sentence, and then passively play me in the video and then play themselves straight after so they can compare. It's very difficult to know whether you're saying something correctly just by speaking and hearing at the same time. Do you see that your brain is multitasking when you do that? Your brain is trying to focus on the ability to speak, so to actually reproduce the sound, and to hear whether it's correct or not. So that's two different tasks, and they're very difficult tasks. So instead of doing that, it's best to record yourself and do the listening separately. That way you can spot your mistakes more easily. I love teaching my students to listen to themselves really well, because I always say that you've got me for a certain amount of time when you're doing Pronounce with Patty. I am there for you. I am going to hear your messages. I am going to tell you what you need to work on. I am going to show you what you're doing wrong. I'm going to be there to help you all the way. But then what? The journey goes on. So when you learn the skill, which is to be able to hear yourself and tell what you're doing wrong and to be able to fix it, then you are a lot more free going forward. And that is always my intention. My intention is to always set my students free so that they know what they're supposed to do. They can get going, they can find their way, and they can feel more confident in the process. Something else about the way I teach pronunciation that I feel is super important, okay? I teach you sound, so just that particular sound, which is called a phoneme, but I call it sound because who cares about terminologies? I teach you sound, and then we put that sound into a word. And then I play around with that. So there's the sound at the beginning of the word, middle, and end. And we play around with that because your brain has to understand how to transition from one sound to the next. And then we put that word or those words into sentences. So we always do it like that: sound, word, or words, sentences. That way your brain gets a really thorough understanding of what those sounds are and how you're supposed to reproduce them. It's really important, guys, when you're working on pronunciation to consider feelings, emotions, intentions. So this is something I talk about a lot on Pronounce with Patty in terms of what are you feeling when you're saying this? Because depending on how you feel, you're going to deliver the message in a different way. So speech is not robotic, isn't it? You're not AI. I mean, we are human beings, and there are things about us that we need to keep alive. And one of those things I feel is the ability to convey feelings and emotions through speech. So we talk about that a lot as well, which is something I noticed about my own learning when it comes to pronunciations, that I was always watching how people were feeling when they were speaking in a specific way. And I would then try to reproduce that by myself. And also the fact that we have to completely let go of what we think is right. So a great tip I like to give to my students is, when you approach pronunciation, approach it like it's a completely different language. Like it's not English, it's something new. Because the hardest thing is to stop making the mistakes you were making because you are so used to them. So I'm trying to teach you how to say foreign. You are so used to saying it in a different way that you're just going to block it out and you're going to continue to repeat it in your own way. That's where the problem is. So when you approach it like it's a different language, I'm teaching you different words you don't know, you are more capable in terms of taking a step back and really opening your ears to the sound so that you can allow yourself to be surprised. Learning pronunciation is so fun because it's about being surprised all the time. Most things you're learning are about showing you that your perception of English was directly connected to your language. And now, guess what? This is English standing on its own. This is English gaining its own life. And that's why pronunciation is so important and so exciting to learn. Anyway, I really hope this video has helped you understand the best ways for you to work on your pronunciation. And as I said, if you wish to learn pronunciation from me, a non-native speaker who has managed to learn British pronunciation in a way that makes me speak clearly and makes me connect with people very easily, then you can follow me on Instagram and get more information about Pronounce with Patty opening at the end of November, all right? But just remember, all of those tips that I gave you today are super important, so remember them when you're working on your pronunciation. Thank you for watching. See you guys next time.